I'll tell you, their story shocked me, and it may shock you as well. Stick around. Yeah, as a public servant, you amass so many stories. Some of them are really not, I guess, worth telling, but some of them do have value in that they have a training element that might expose a universal truth for us as public servants. Man, I'll tell you, this story I'm about to tell you was definitely like that. When I heard these people's story, it shocked me, and I'm going to show you why. So back when I was an officer in a land far, far, far away from where I am now, I had a call of a fire in the roadway. Now, the location given to me was far outside the city limits. There was no cell service. Heck, there was hardly any traffic. And so I responded, and as I'm approaching the scene, yeah, I could see there was a big fire there. But as I approached closer, I realized what was on fire was a big full-size recreational vehicle, an RV. So I parked my patrol vehicle and jumped out, and I see two people off to the side staring at the fire. And I ran up to them and asked if everybody had gotten out, and they assured me everybody was out, and it was just the two of them. Now, at first glance, these people were excited, they were nervous, they were shaking, they were completely out of their element, and obviously for good reason. It's not every day that your RV burns up in flames. And so there I was, the professional, the public servant, thrown into this equation with two people who were completely out of their element. And so being a good public servant, I quickly transitioned into a humanitarian role and tried best as I could to comfort them through words, through body language, and to let them know that we were there to help. And as the scene was being cleaned up by the fire department and a tow truck and other agencies there to assist, I focused on the two people who had previously owned this RV. Now, it's important for us as public servants when we encounter somebody who is actively going through a traumatic experience or a critical incident, that we don't elevate things unnecessarily. In other words, did I need information from these people? Yeah, some cursory information for a report, but there was no crime committed as far as I could tell. There was no victims here, and essentially there were no laws broken. And what that meant to me is that I could start to begin to try to lower the temperature, no pun intended, but to lower that temperature for these people psychologically, physically, heck, even spiritually if possible. And so that road to reassurance started out very small. And remember, when we contact these people, we want to start small. Don't start big. Start laying that path to service with small things, easy things, things that are mentally easy to reach for so that you can be effective at your job. And these people can be effective at starting their healing. And so after several minutes of small talk, a theme was brought up by the gentleman. Now, let me back up a little bit and tell you that the story essentially was they were driving up this hill, they began to lose power, and then they started to see smoke. The smoke turned into flames. So they pulled over, jumped out of the RV, only to watch their vehicle go up in flames. So what that meant to them is they had no wallets, and no wallets means no money, no credit cards. They had no cell phones, which wouldn't have been too much use up there since it was out of range. But as we all know, sometimes our cell phones contain personal, intimate information about our lives. And these two people were without all of that. Not to mention their recreational vehicle that they had taken on this road trip multiple states away from home. And to say now that they were out of their element is a huge, huge understatement. And so I, as a public servant, show up to the situation where they're not prepared for this. They don't have a plan for what to do when your RV goes up in flames, what to do when you have no wallet, what to do when you have no cell phone. Their plans mostly included probably things on how to enjoy the scenery, how to navigate the roadways of this new state, how to enjoy their recreational vehicle. And as I mentioned, another theme evolved, and that was of the man talking about his prized guitar, which was in the RV. And needless to say, the guitar was no more. Yet mentally, he was still anchored in to what that guitar represented. It represented freedom, it represented joy, it represented artistic endeavors. And so I, recognizing that powerful theme, I jumped in on it. And I began to talk about guitar playing, I began to talk about music, and it had a calming effect on this gentleman. And because he began to calm down, his wife followed suit. And slowly the temperature of that situation was brought further and further down. Essentially, I was doing my job. I was being a helper to those who needed help. Hey, real quick, if you're getting something out of these videos, consider liking and consider subscribing and send me a comment. I would love to hear them. Now back to that story. Now let's fast forward a little bit. After the scene was cleaned up, I arranged for a hotel in the city and I offered them a ride to the hotel. Now during this ride into town is when a truth that blew my mind was revealed. Engaging in small talk and kind of re-edifying that lower temperature and trying to build up that belief that they were in good hands with my agency. I asked what they did for a living or a pastime, and their answers literally shocked me, especially given everything that I had seen. Now, let me remind you, they were in shock, they were shaking, they were scared, they were thinking the worst. They were all alone in a mysterious place, and everything that was familiar to them in this mysterious place, be that a wallet, be that identification, be that cell phone, and the guitar, and of course the recreational vehicle, was in one instance taken away from them. And so when I saw these people, you could say that they were not themselves. They were in an altered state based on the circumstances they had just experienced. And when they told me what they had done for a living, it blew my mind. It literally shocked me. The wife said that she was an ER nurse. And if you think about an emergency room nurse or a nurse in general, and you think of all the things that they are exposed to, all the training they have to go to, all the plans laid that they have to have at a moment's notice for a multitude of scenarios, and the scenes that they have seen, screaming children, screaming parents, shock, trauma, critical incidents, everything that comes to their doorstep in the role of a nurse must be as vast or more vast than that of a public servant. And when the husband told me what he did, it only added to the shock. He told me that he was in the military, and if I remember correctly, he might have been military police, but he was definitely like a career military person. And when I think of a military person, I think of all the training, all the exactness, all the perseverance that they have to go to, all that they're required to do to maintain credibility in their job. Yet what I saw in these people didn't line up to that. It didn't make sense. But what it drove home to me was the importance that when they're out of their element, it is vital that you, as a public servant, are in our element, that we are trained up, that we have a plan that is multiple layers deep. And when those plans don't work, we're armed with contingency plans. And because we've been redundant with our training, so much so that we have muscle memory and things come quickly to our mind, that we can be effective when others, through situational input, are completely removed from their element. I will tell you, that blew me away to learn that these people that I saw on the side of the road had done some pretty intense things in their life by way of a career because it didn't match up. I tell you that story because I think there's something we can all learn from that, and that is the importance to be on your game. We don't know what people bring to the table. I mean, we may know a few of the elements, but largely we don't know how many thousands of miles or how many thousands of experiences, whether that be traumatic, whether that be joyful, whether that be spiritual, or any other thing that provides input into the way a person presents themselves to us. Largely, we don't know that. It's important for us to be humans about our job and take things step by step and appropriate, and to always have the ability to interject a humanistic approach to what we do. Even if it's somebody that you arrest, even if it's somebody that you have to use force against, or if it's somebody that you encounter by happenstance, whose RV has just gone up in flames. Be ready when that call comes. Be trained up, and never forget to take your humanity when you go out on that beat. It can literally mean the world to those we serve. Yeah, like I said, when I learned what they did for a living, it shocked me. It literally shocked me, because I would have not guessed that that's how those two people would have reacted had you asked me before this incident. I probably would have thought that they would have been level-headed and calm and collected, especially based on what I'm assuming are the things that they had seen in their lives before. But that wasn't the case. Now, as a side note to this story, and another reason why it sticks out in my head and always will, is that for years to come, they sent me cards and letters just to check in and say hi, or to say Merry Christmas. And I'll tell you what, that meant the world to me. But I know for a fact that had I been callous, had I not been kind, had I not had empathy with them, and had I not been able to competently talk about the guitar, that story could have had a much different ending. An ending where they just couldn't stand to be around me, where they couldn't wait to be in a scenario where I was not involved. But the opposite was true. And while I don't know where they are now or what they're doing, man, I hope they are well. And I will never forget them. Hey, that's what I have for you today. Do your best out there. Be the public servant that you would want your loved one to encounter if they needed help. It's time that we as public servants get outside those norms or those traditions of what people may think public servants are. Are we lifeless? Are we robotic? Are we so beholden to a script that we can't be dynamic about our interactions with other human beings? We shouldn't be, but that's up to you. Get out there, make a difference, get outside, and let's get that work done.